The tension on the bridge of the inevitable Dominion thickened as the satellite continued its silent vigil. Admiral Selvac's exoskeleton plates shifted subtly, a sign of unease that Commander Krell hadn't witnessed in their 15 campaigns together. "Initiate deep scan protocol," Selvac ordered. "I want to know exactly what we're dealing with." The ship's quantum sensors probed Earth's defenses, sending invisible tendrils of energy through the orbital network. Junior Science Officer Mira hunched over her console, compound eyes rapidly processing the incoming data. "Admiral, I'm detecting unusual energy signatures across their lunar installations. The patterns don't match any known civilization at this development stage." Her mandibles clicked nervously. "There's something else. The satellite that tracked our drone appears to be employing phase shift technology." Selvac's head snapped toward her station. "Impossible. Phase shift technology requires quantum manipulation principles that took our scientists 3 centuries to perfect." Mira's exoskeleton paled slightly. "Yet the readings are unmistakable, Admiral." On the view screen, Earth rotated serenely, clouds swirling across blue oceans and green-brown landmasses. Deceptively primitive. Deceptively vulnerable. Zelvac moved to the tactical display, studying the orbital patterns around the planet. Something about the satellite formations troubled him. They appeared random and inefficient, yet his military instincts sensed purpose in their positioning. "Launch a comprehensive drone network," he commanded. "Full spectrum analysis. I want eyes on every square kilometer of that planet." As the drones deployed from the Imperial vessel's launch bays, Tactical Officer Zex approached the Admiral. "Sir, if I may, the standard protocol for Phase 3 civilizations is immediate show of force followed by resource negotiation. Why are we proceeding with such caution?" Zelvac fixed his compound eyes on the younger officer. "In 3 millennia of expansion, the Empire has conquered 37 spacefaring civilizations. Do you know how many of those conquests I've personally overseen?" 22, sir. And in those 22 campaigns, I've developed an instinct for danger." Selvac gestured toward the blue planet. "This world doesn't make sense. Their technological development is inconsistent. Their defense grid appears simultaneously primitive and advanced. Their orbital installations show energy signatures that contradict their apparent capabilities." He moved closer to the view screen, studying Earth with an intensity that made the bridge crew uncomfortable. In the 5th Imperial Manual of Conquest, there's a passage rarely referenced. "Beware the civilization that appears less than it is, for deception is the first defense of the truly dangerous." The ship's sensors suddenly blared an alert. One of the reconnaissance drones had gone silent upon approaching the dark side of Earth's moon. Then another. And another. "Pull the drones back," Zelvac ordered sharply. Commander Krell's mandibles twitched with confusion. "Sir, we've lost only 3 units out of 50. Standard acceptable losses for reconnaissance." "This isn't about the drones," Zelvac interrupted. "It's about the pattern." He pointed to the tactical display where small red indicators showed the exact positions where each drone had vanished. "They're testing our response, revealing just enough capability to make us question, but not enough to confirm their true level of advancement." He turned to face his command staff, his exoskeleton now darkening with the Vexillian equivalent of grim determination. "We are either dealing with a primitive world possessing inexplicably advanced technology, or a highly advanced world deliberately presenting as primitive. Neither scenario follows standard Imperial encounter protocols." He gestured toward Earth once more. "And in 300 years of service to the Empire, I've learned one crucial lesson. When uncertainty exists, gather more intelligence before committing to action." The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. Their routine conquest had just become something far more intriguing and potentially dangerous. Elise's heels clicked against polished concrete as she descended deeper into the Geneva facility. The elevator required 3 biometric scans and a vocal passphrase before the doors opened to reveal the true heart of Earth's defense, the Phantom Shield Command Center. "Status report." she demanded, striding toward the central holographic display where technicians frantically calibrated systems. Dr. Sanjay Patel looked up from his console, dark circles under his eyes betraying the 72 hours he'd gone without proper sleep. The Imperial vessel is deploying reconnaissance drones. Our lunar defenses have neutralized 3, enough to make them cautious without revealing our full capabilities. And the Antarctic site, fully operational. The quantum entanglement array is intercepting approximately 68% of their internal communications. He hesitated. Eliza, they're speaking a dialect we haven't fully mapped. The translation algorithm is struggling with military terminology. She nodded, unsurprised. Focus on tactical communications. Priority 1 is anticipating their next move. The command center hummed with controlled urgency as the world's finest scientists and military strategists executed humanity's most elaborate deception. On massive screens lining the walls, real-time data streamed in from disguised sensor arrays across the solar system. Captain Maya Rivera, former NASA astronaut and current commander of Earth's Limited Orbital Defense Network, approached with a tablet. The holographic projectors on the far side of the moon are functioning perfectly. From the Empire's position, it looks like we have a fully operational lunar base, and the actual status of Tranquility Base. Maya's expression tightened, maintaining minimal power signatures. The 12 personnel are in the hardened bunkers beneath the surface. If the Vexillians launch a strike, they won't, Eliza interrupted. Not yet. Their tactical doctrine emphasizes intelligence gathering before commitment. She turned to the strategic planning section, where General Williams was reviewing defense scenarios with his team. How's our orbital charade holding up? The general gestured to a simulation showing Earth's network of satellites, most of them standard communications and weather platforms, but interspersed with the few genuinely advanced defensive systems Earth possessed. The passive sensor web is feeding them exactly what we want them to see, he explained. Energy signatures suggesting shielding capabilities, weapon systems that don't exist, all calibrated to appear just barely detectable to their scanners. As if we're trying to hide them, but not quite succeeding. Ambassador Chen approached, eyes fixed on his secure tablet. The UN Security Council is demanding updates. How long can we keep this containment protocol in place? As long as necessary, Eliza replied firmly. The moment the public learns about the Vexillian presence, we lose control of the narrative. Panic would undermine everything we've planned. She moved to a private tactical station and brought up the classified Cassandra protocol documents, contingency plans developed after the Antarctic crash 15 years ago. The recovered Vexillian scout ship had provided humanity with limited but crucial insights into Imperial technology and psychology. Their species evolved as hive predators, she murmured, studying the xenopsychology profile. They respect strength but abhor unnecessary risk. Our entire strategy hinges on that fundamental trait. A sharp alert tone cut through the room's tension. Dr. Patel straightened at his monitoring station. We're detecting energy buildups in the Imperial vessel. They're initiating active scanning protocols, much more intensive than before. Eliza's expression remained calm, but her fingers tightened around the edge of the console. This is the critical moment. If their scans penetrate our false signatures, General Williams joined her, voice low. Plan B. Not yet. Her eyes tracked the incoming data feeds. Let's see if our deception holds. Remember, we don't need to fool them forever, just long enough to establish communication on our terms. Across the solar system, carefully positioned emitters adjusted their output patterns, creating the illusion of advanced technological signatures where none truly existed. Earth's greatest weapon wasn't firepower, but the perception of firepower. A house of cards built on understanding exactly how the Vexillian Empire evaluated potential conquests. Eliza took a deep breath. Prepare the communication package. If they're scanning this actively, they're getting ready to make their first move. We need to be one step ahead. Commander Krell stared at the empty space where the kinetic projectile had vanished. The tactical display showed no debris, no energy discharge, just a clean disappearance approximately 238,000 kilometers from Earth. His compound eyes clicked rapidly as they adjusted focus, a physiological response to extreme confusion. "Replay the sequence," Admiral Zelvac ordered. "Magnify the intercept point and enhance." The holographic projection expanded, showing the precise moment of the projectile's disappearance. At extreme magnification, a subtle ripple in spacetime became visible. A millisecond-long distortion that shouldn't be possible with Earth's apparent technological development. "Analysis?" Zelvac demanded. Science Officer Mira manipulated the holographic controls with her upper appendages. "The effect resembles our Phase 7 quantum interdiction technology, Admiral. The projectile wasn't destroyed or deflected. It was removed from normal spacetime." "That's absurd," Fleet Commander Zex interjected. "Our intelligence confirms the humans have barely mastered nuclear fission. Their space technology is primitive chemical propulsion. Quantum interdiction requires unified field theory, zero-point energy manipulation, and—" "Yet we all witnessed it," Zelvac interrupted, mandibles clicking in the pattern that indicated deep thought. "Either our intelligence is catastrophically wrong, or, Krell prompted, or the humans acquired this technology from another source." Zelvac turned to his intelligence officer. "Search the archives. Has any Phase 7 civilization been detected in this sector within the last 1,000 cycles?" "None, Admiral. The nearest was the Centauri Accord, but they were assimilated 6,000 cycles ago, on the opposite side of the galactic arm." Zelvac's exoskeleton darkened slightly, a sign of troubled thoughts among his species. He moved to the tactical station and initiated a new scan protocol, his appendages moving with practiced precision. "I'm detecting energy signatures consistent with quantum field manipulation at these coordinates," he noted, highlighting 12 points in Earth's orbit. Yet their global power infrastructure couldn't possibly support such technology. The energy requirements alone would. He stopped mid-sentence, compound eyes fixed on a new data stream. "These readings, they're fluctuating in a non-random pattern." Krell moved to his commander's side. "Signs of instability?" "No." Zelvac's voice lowered. "Signs of deliberate modulation. These energy signatures aren't consistent with operational quantum technology. They're consistent with someone attempting to mimic such technology." A ripple of unease passed through the bridge crew. Tactical Officer Zex spoke first. "A deception, Admiral. But the projectile undeniably vanished." "Yes. One demonstration of genuine advanced technology surrounded by elaborate facsimiles." Zelvac's mandibles clicked rapidly. "An economical strategy. They have limited capabilities but are projecting the illusion of much greater strength." In the silence that followed, the implications sank in. The Empire had encountered civilizations with superior technology before. Those conflicts were settled through overwhelming numbers. But a civilization clever enough to create such an elaborate deception presented a different kind of challenge. "Prepare a comprehensive scanning grid," Zelvac ordered. "I want to know exactly what's real and what's illusion down there." Before the crew could acknowledge the order, the ship's communication systems activated without authorization. Every display on the bridge suddenly showed the same image: Earth's blue-white sphere against the blackness of space. "That's impossible," whispered Krell. "Our firewalls are impenetrable." The image shifted, replaced by what appeared to be a human female. More disturbing than the security breach was the fact that the transmission was perfectly formatted for Vexillian visual receptors, optimized for compound eye perception, and utilizing color spectrums preferred by their species. Commander Krell's exoskeleton paled further. "They'd studied us extensively." Admiral Zelvac watched the screen, his posture rigid. In 3 centuries of Imperial service, he had faced numerous alien civilizations, some more technologically advanced, others more numerous. But never had he encountered a species that combined limited technological capabilities with such precise knowledge of imperial systems and biology. The human female on the screen hadn't yet spoken, but her presence on their secure systems sent a clear message. Earth might not have overwhelming firepower, but they possessed something potentially more dangerous: intimate knowledge of their would-be conquerors. Dr. Eliza Rice felt the vocal modulator constricting her throat as she gazed into the camera. The device, painfully adjusted to her larynx, was humanity's only means of producing the complex clicking patterns of high imperial Vexillian. Behind her, a team of linguists monitored her pronunciation through specialized audio equipment, ready to signal if her delivery deviated from the precise dialectical patterns required. "We know of the 37 civilizations you have subjugated," she continued, forcing the alien sounds through her modified vocal cords. "We know of the resources extracted, the populations displaced, the world stripped bare." On screens surrounding her, data streamed in from the quantum entanglement device, their fragile window into the Imperial vessel's bridge. She could see the Vexillians' reactions, their exoskeletons shifting colors in response to her words. The Admiral, Selvak, according to intercepted communications, had darkened to a deep blue-black, the Vexillian equivalent of shocked attention. Good. That was precisely the response they needed. To demonstrate our technological understanding, we are transmitting data packets on frequencies your systems consider secure, Eliza continued. Each word was agony through the modulator, but she maintained the precise cadence the linguists had identified as conveying authority in Vexillian culture. These packets contain schematics for technologies we possess that your empire might find concerning. Dr. Patel, stationed at a nearby console, initiated the carefully prepared transmission. The schematics represented a masterpiece of scientific half-truths and extrapolations, genuine theoretical frameworks padded with impossibilities that would nonetheless appear plausible to imperial scientists. Just enough authentic science to be credible, surrounded by exaggerated capabilities they didn't actually possess. No threats, Eliza had insisted during planning. No ultimatums. The Vexillians respond poorly to direct challenges. We simply provide information and allow them to draw their own conclusions. Now, watching the aliens' reactions through the quantum entanglement viewer, she saw her strategy working. The bridge crew had gathered around their displays, compound eyes fixed on the technological schematics humanity had transmitted. Through her earpiece, Dr. Patel provided real-time updates. They're running verification algorithms on our transmission. Their systems are flagging inconsistencies, but not enough to dismiss the data outright. Eliza maintained eye contact with the camera, knowing the Vexillians would interpret sustained gaze as a sign of dominance. "We have observed your civilization's expansion patterns. You avoid costly conquests in favor of efficient subjugation. A logical approach." She allowed her voice to soften slightly. "We respect efficiency." On the entanglement viewer, she saw Admiral Selvak's appendages move in what their xenopsychologists had identified as a gesture of wary consideration. "Earth has no interest in galactic affairs," she continued. "We seek neither conquest nor conflict. We simply wish to be recognized as a sovereign world outside imperial interests. The demonstration you witnessed represents our commitment to this position." As she spoke, technicians around the command center monitored Imperial scan attempts. Their systems were designed to present a carefully coordinated dance of real and illusory defenses, genuine technologies powering up in sequence with holographic projections, creating an impression of a unified planetary defense system far beyond Earth's actual capabilities. "The choice before you is simple, Admiral Selvak," Eliza concluded, using his name and rank deliberately, another calculated move to demonstrate Earth's intelligence capabilities. Peaceful recognition of Earth's sovereignty, or an engagement whose cost would exceed any potential gain. Our estimates suggest conquest attempts would result in the loss of at least 60% of your current fleet strength. She paused, allowing the manufactured number to sink in. Their xenopsychologists had calculated this specific percentage would trigger maximum caution without seeming like an obvious bluff. We await your response. Earth remains open to establishing diplomatic relations should you choose a path of mutual respect rather than conquest. With a subtle nod to the technicians, Eliza ended the transmission. The modulator retracted from her throat with a mechanical whir, leaving her gasping in pain and relief. General Williams approached, offering a glass of water. Think they bought it. Eliza took a sip, wincing as the cool liquid soothed her raw throat. They're calculating risk versus reward. That's all we need them to do. On the main display, the Imperial vessel remained motionless in Earth orbit, its weapon systems powered but inactive. The next few hours would determine humanity's fate. Would the Empire recognize the apparent danger of invasion, or call their bluff? Now, Eliza whispered, we find out if the greatest poker game in human history worked. 6 hours after transmission, the Geneva Command Center operated in near silence. Technicians monitored their stations with laser focus, maintaining the elaborate illusion that had become Earth's only defense. The room smelled of cold coffee and nervous sweat. They'd been scanning our lunar facilities for the past 40 minutes, Dr. Peddle reported, voice hushed despite the soundproofed room, focused particularly on the Sea of Tranquility installations. Eliza nodded, throat still raw from the vocal modulator. That's where we've concentrated our most convincing holographic projections. Are the energy signature modulators holding up? So far, the Antarctic power grid is straining, but managing the load. What the Vexillians couldn't know was that Earth's entire defensive facade was powered by a single source, the alien reactor salvage from the crashed scout ship 15 years earlier. Engineers had spent a decade reverse engineering its principles, but they'd only managed to create one functioning replica. That precious power source now drove the global network of projectors, emitters, and the single genuine quantum interdiction field that had neutralized the Imperial projectile. Movement, announced Captain Rivera from the orbital tracking station. The Imperial vessel is repositioning. New orbit brings them over our Pacific Defense Array in 17 minutes. General Williams studied the tactical display. They're being methodical, checking each of our supposed defense installations one by one. Good, Eliza replied. The longer they analyze, the more time we have. Time for what exactly? Ambassador Chen asked quietly. He'd remained skeptical of Operation Phantom Shield from its inception. Even if they believe our bluff today, what about tomorrow? Next year? We can't maintain this charade indefinitely. Eliza turned to face him directly. We don't need indefinitely. We need 18 months. She gestured to Dr. Lydia Kovalev, who had remained silent in the corner of the command center. The quantum physicist approached, tablet in hand. Show him, Eliza instructed. Dr. Kovalev brought up a series of complex equations and diagrams. These are derived from the Vexillian ship's propulsion system. Their FTL drive utilizes principles we theorized but couldn't confirm until now. With the data we're gathering from their active scans, plus what we already learned from the Antarctic crash site, we can potentially leapfrog 2 centuries of research. She swiped to a new diagram, what appeared to be a defensive shield blueprint. Their scans are telling us exactly which technologies they consider most threatening. It's like having their research and development roadmap handed to us. Ambassador Chen's skepticism wavered. You're saying we're using their intelligence gathering against them? Precisely, Eliza confirmed. Every minute they spend analyzing our fake defenses gives us more insights into their actual capabilities. Our scientists are literally watching over their shoulders as they attempt to understand us. On the main display, the quantum entanglement viewer showed the Imperial vessel's bridge. Admiral Selvak and his science officers were gathered around a holographic representation of Earth's orbital defense network, the very illusion humanity had crafted for them. Look at their scan patterns, Dr. Patel noted. They're focusing on the quantum shield generators, the technology they understand least. Eliza smiled thinly. Because it's the one piece of our defense that's actually real, even if limited. Their instincts are good. A sudden alert chime drew everyone's attention. The Imperial vessel had launched another probe, smaller than before, on trajectory toward Earth's upper atmosphere. "They're testing us again," General Williams stated, tension evident in his voice. "If we intercept it, we confirm our capabilities. If we don't, we reveal a gap in our defenses," Eliza finished. She turned to the quantum interdiction control station. "Do we have enough power for another demonstration?" The technician's fingers flew across his console. "Barely. We'd need to shut down the holographic projections over Asia to divert power. It would create a temporary blind spot in our facade." Eliza closed her eyes briefly, calculating the risks. This was the real danger of their bluff. Resource allocation. They couldn't be strong everywhere at once. "Intercept the probe," she decided. "Reroute power from Asian projectors for 60 seconds only. Time the interdiction field activation precisely when the probe passes through Chinese airspace. That way, if they detect the power fluctuation, it appears intentional." As her orders were carried out, Eliza watched the Imperial vessel through the quantum entanglement viewer. Admiral Selvek's posture had shifted slightly, mandibles working in what their xenobiologists identified as a gesture of uncertainty. The greatest poker game in history continued, with humanity betting everything on their ability to maintain an impossible bluff. The War Council chamber aboard the Inevitable Dominion thrummed with tension. 7 of the Empire's most experienced military minds surrounded the holographic projection of Earth, their exoskeletons displaying varying shades of blue-green uncertainty. "The quantum interdiction field is genuine," Science Officer Mira reported, highlighting the footage of their second probe's disappearance. "Power signatures indicate localized deployment rather than planetary coverage, but the technology is undeniably advanced." Fleet Commander Zex chittered dismissively. "A single defensive capability does not make them unconquerable. Our historical archives contain 17 instances of civilizations with isolated technological advantages. All were successfully subjugated through targeted strategies. Those civilizations didn't possess intimate knowledge of our language, biology, and tactical doctrine," Krell countered. "The human transmission utilized high imperial dialect with perfect regional inflections. This suggests extensive study of our species." Admiral Selvek moved around the holographic projection, compound eyes focusing on the 12 regions of Earth showing unusual energy signatures. More troubling is how they acquired this knowledge. The dialect used by the human speaker includes phonetic patterns specific to the Imperial core, utterances that haven't been broadcast beyond our secure networks. An uncomfortable silence fell over the Council. The implications were disturbing. Either Earth had somehow intercepted supposedly impenetrable Imperial communications, or they had obtained information directly from Vexillian sources. "Could one of our vessels have previously encountered Earth?" Zex suggested. "Perhaps a scouting mission unrecorded in Central Archives." Tactical Officer Vren, who had remained silent until now, activated his personal data terminal. "I've cross-referenced all Imperial fleet movements within 50 light-years of Sol for the past century. There is one anomaly. Scout vessel Distant Observer failed to return from a routine survey 63 years ago. Its last reported position was 17 light-years from this system." Zelvek's mandibles clicked sharply. The human representative specifically mentioned monitoring our activities for 63 years. That cannot be coincidence. The implications crystallized in the chamber. If humans had captured an Imperial scout ship, even one with outdated technology, it would explain their anomalous advancement in specific areas and their knowledge of Vexillian biology and language. The scenario suggests technological scavenging rather than independent development, Krell observed. Their quantum interdiction field likely derives from adapted Imperial technology. Admiral Selvak manipulated the holographic controls, bringing up the data packets transmitted by Earth. Their schematics contain inconsistencies, theoretical frameworks supported by implausible power distribution models. Much of this appears to be deliberate misinformation. "So they're bluffing," Zex concluded, exoskeleton brightening with renewed confidence. Partially, Selvak corrected. They possess limited but genuine advanced capabilities, supplemented by elaborate deception. The question is not whether we can eventually overcome their defenses, but at what cost. He initiated a tactical simulation. The standard Imperial invasion protocol applied to Earth. The holographic projection displayed waves of dropships descending toward the planet's surface, with defensive countermeasures represented by pulsing red indicators. Even assuming only 20% of their displayed capabilities are genuine, simulations project 37% fleet casualties in the initial assault phase. Selvak manipulated the controls, adjusting variables. If their quantum interdiction technology can be adapted to target our capital ships rather than just projectiles, that figure rises to 52%. Imperial Overseer Therix, who had joined the Council via secure quantum link from the Empire's capital, spoke for the first time. His aged exoskeleton bore the pale blue markings of the Imperial Inner Circle. "Percentages are irrelevant, Admiral. The only pertinent question is whether Earth possesses resources valuable enough to justify casualties. The Empire does not measure conquest by cost, but by return on investment." Selvak acknowledged the Overseer with a respectful mandible gesture. The preliminary resource survey confirms significant mineral wealth, particularly in rare earth elements. Habitability rating is exceptional. Indigenous biology shows promising pharmaceutical applications. He paused, compound eyes narrowing slightly. However, intelligence analysis suggests high probability of scorched earth tactics if invasion proceeds. The humans appear prepared to destroy resource centers rather than relinquish them. Overseer Therix's mandibles clicked in disapproval. A primitive sentiment. Resources belong to those strong enough to claim them. Perhaps, Selvak conceded, but it affects the practical calculation nonetheless. Dead worlds yield no tribute to the Empire. Throughout the chamber, the Council members' exoskeletons shifted through subtle color patterns as they processed the competing factors. The Empire had built its dominion on efficient conquest, overwhelming force applied against minimal resistance. Earth presented a potentially costly exception to that model. Imperial doctrine was clear. When resource extraction costs exceeded projected yield, alternative approaches were warranted. Not out of mercy, but mathematics. The retrofitted International Space Station module hummed with tension. Despite the environmental system's best efforts, the atmosphere remained uncomfortable for both species, slightly too cold for the Vexillians, whose exoskeletons preferred higher ambient temperatures, and oddly dry for the humans. The discomfort was deliberately calibrated. Dr. Eliza Reyes had insisted on hosting this first formal diplomatic exchange in a setting that disadvantaged neither side completely but kept everyone slightly on edge. Psychological equalization, she called it. Commander Krell's translator device clicked softly as he formulated his next statement. The device was unnecessary. He had studied enough human language to communicate directly. But maintaining the pretense of technological dependency was part of the Imperial diplomatic protocol. It created the illusion of distance while allowing his delegation to carefully consider each response. "Your quantum interdiction technology is impressive," he noted, compound eyes fixed on Eliza. "Our scientists estimate it must consume substantial energy resources to maintain." The implied question hung in the recycled air between them. How much of Earth's power grid was devoted to defense? What were the limitations? The Vexillians probed for weaknesses with every seemingly casual observation. "We believe in balanced development," Eliza replied smoothly. "Defense is merely one application of fundamental quantum principles." Dr. Patel, seated beside her, suppressed a smile at the masterful non-answer. Their strategy for these negotiations had been meticulously planned. Acknowledge Vexillian observations without confirming or denying specific capabilities. General Williams, the third member of Earth's delegation, placed a data tablet on the table. "We've prepared a framework for non-aggression and limited cultural exchange. You'll note it includes provisions for designated diplomatic zones, but restricts Imperial presence to these specific areas. Krell's appendages moved across the tablet's surface, absorbing the document's contents with practiced efficiency. His exoskeleton shifted subtly, a micro-expression that the human skenobiologists had taught them to recognize as surprised calculation. "These terms are unusual," he stated finally. "Most species seek technological exchange as a primary objective." Eliza leaned forward slightly. "Earth has its own technological development path. We're more interested in cultural and biological understanding." The deliberate implication that Earth didn't need Imperial technology was precisely the message their strategy required, presenting as confident rather than eager, self-sufficient rather than desperate. Behind the one-way observation glass, Ambassador Chen watched with Dr. Kovalev and a team of xenopsychologists who analyzed every Vexillian movement and vocal inflection. "They're probing our power capabilities repeatedly," Dr. Kovalev whispered. "They've made 17 indirect inquiries about energy infrastructure." Chen nodded. "They've identified our greatest vulnerability." Meanwhile, in the negotiation room, Commander Krell had moved to more specific proposals. The Empire traditionally offers developmental assistance to sovereign worlds in exchange for resource harvesting rights. Limited extraction, mutually beneficial. "An interesting proposal," Eliza replied, her tone carefully neutral. "Though we've observed that many worlds find the extraction quotas increase substantially once Imperial infrastructure is established." Krell's mandibles stilled, a sign of surprise that his species couldn't fully suppress. The human statement revealed knowledge of internal Imperial economic policies that were never shared with subjugated worlds. General Williams built on Eliza's momentum. "Our counterproposal emphasizes non-interference. Earth maintains complete sovereignty over its resources while establishing limited trade protocols through designated orbital facilities." As he spoke, Captain Rivera's voice came through Eliza's discreet earpiece. "Imperial vessel is scanning our southern hemisphere defense array. Power fluctuations detected in Antarctic grid." Eliza maintained her composure perfectly, not even a flicker of concern crossing her features as she continued negotiating. This was the most dangerous aspect of the diplomatic dance, the Vexillians negotiating in apparent good faith while simultaneously probing Earth's defenses for weaknesses. "Perhaps," she suggested smoothly, "we should discuss cultural exchange protocols before addressing resource questions. Understanding precedes commerce, after all." Commander Krell's translator clicked as it processed her statement. Behind the alien diplomat, his aides exchanged subtle appendage gestures that the human xenolinguists had identified as expressions of frustrated respect. The Imperial delegation had come expecting either fearful capitulation or naive technological bargaining. Earth's representatives were offering neither, instead navigating the conversation with unsettling familiarity with Imperial diplomatic tactics. Through her earpiece, Eliza received another update. Antarctic grid stabilized. Defensive facade holding. The bluff continued to work, for now. But every minute of these negotiations was another minute where discovery threatened. Earth needed an agreement before the Vexillians uncovered the truth about their limited capabilities. Commander Krell's exoskeleton shifted to a deeper blue, the equivalent of a thoughtful frown. "You negotiate as if from position of strength, Dr. Reyes. Most worlds meeting the Empire for the first time do not display such confidence." Eliza allowed herself a small smile. Perhaps that's why most worlds end up as Imperial provinces rather than sovereign allies. Admiral Gselvik, now Imperial Overseer of Human Relations, stood at the viewport of his private chambers aboard the diplomatic vessel Calculated Gesture. Earth rotated serenely below, its night side glittering with city lights. After 18 months of careful diplomacy, this was his 12th visit to the Sol system. His personal data terminal chimed with an incoming transmission from Imperial High Command. The message was brief but significant. Resource Development Council approves permanent diplomatic presence. Station construction authorized. A complex mix of emotions rippled through his exoskeleton. Satisfaction at the diplomatic achievement, lingering unease about Earth's true nature, and something less definable. In 3 centuries of imperial service, he had overseen the conquest of 22 worlds and the diplomatic absorption of 7 others. Yet none had challenged his tactical understanding like Earth. His meditation was interrupted by the arrival of Commander Krell, now his chief diplomatic advisor. "The humans have approved our proposal for the orbital station," Krell reported, "with unusual conditions." "Of course," Zelvac replied with a clicking sound that approximated dry amusement. "What demands have they made this time?" "Joint construction, equal crew distribution, and most surprisingly, they're offering to provide the quantum shielding technology for the station's defense grid." Zelvac's compound eyes shifted focus rapidly, a sign of intense interest his species couldn't suppress. "They're sharing their interdiction field technology, apparently." Science Officer Mira is analyzing the schematics now. Krell's mandibles work nervously. "Sir, if these plans are genuine, they represent a significant advance over our own shield designs. The power efficiency alone is remarkable." Zelvac moved to his private terminal, reviewing the transmitted data. The quantum shield specifications showed elegant solutions to problems that had plagued Imperial engineers for decades, but something about the design nagged at his tactical instincts. "These power coupling configurations," he noted, highlighting a section of the schematics. "They're identical to theoretical models developed by our Science Academy 50 years ago, models that were abandoned due to implementation failures. Yet the humans have apparently solved the implementation issues," Krell observed. "So it would seem." Zelvac studied the designs with growing suspicion. "Have you noticed how human technological advancement follows a curious pattern? Each new capability they reveal seems to build upon imperial principles, yet diverges in unexpected ways." Before Krell could respond, the terminal signaled an incoming communication from Earth. Dr. Eliza Reyes appeared on the screen, her composed expression now familiar after numerous negotiations. "Overseer Zelvac, I trust you've received our shield specifications for the joint station project." "Indeed, Dr. Reyes. My technical staff finds them most illuminating." Her expression revealed nothing, but Zelvac had spent enough time studying human micro-expressions to detect the subtle tension around her eyes. "We look forward to beginning construction next month," she continued smoothly. "Our engineers are particularly eager to compare design philosophies with your team." After the communication ended, Zelvac remained silent for several moments, compound eyes fixed on the terminal. "Sir," Krell prompted, "arrange a private meeting with Science Officer Mira. No records, no reports." Zelvac's mandibles clicked decisively. "And prepare a secure transmission to Imperial Archives. I need all data on Scout Vessel Distant Observer that vanished 63 years ago, particularly its experimental drive and defense systems." Later that cycle, in the secure briefing room, Mira's analysis confirmed Zelvac's suspicions. The quantum shield design is essentially an evolved version of theoretical work by Imperial scientists, fresh Vex from 2 centuries ago, she explained. But the humans have incorporated solutions that weren't developed until decades after the distant observer disappeared. Meaning they didn't simply reverse engineer salvage technology, Zelvac concluded. They understood the underlying principles and advanced them independently. He moved to the viewport, watching Earth's blue curve against the blackness of space. The realization crystallizing in his mind was simultaneously disturbing and oddly satisfying, a confirmation of his earliest instincts about this unusual world. "We've been looking at this backward," he told his officers quietly. "We assumed humans possessed advanced technology when we arrived and maintained that facade through deception. But the truth is more remarkable. They had almost nothing when we arrived, but used our presence, our scans, our very interest in them to accelerate their development at an unprecedented rate." Krell's exoskeleton paled slightly. "Sir, if that's true, then the greatest threat the Empire has ever faced isn't a civilization with superior technology," Zelvac finished. It's a civilization that can adapt and evolve faster than any species we've encountered in 3,000 years of expansion." He turned from the viewport, mandibles set in a gesture of grim certainty. "The humans didn't warn us about their weapons. They warned us about themselves.